All right, good evening, everyone. I'm going to call this joint City Council School Committee meeting to order pursuant to Mass General Law and Section 20 of Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021. Notice is hereby given of a meeting of the Joint City Council School Committee. Today is Thursday, and it is exactly 5:39. And I would just like to remind everyone that this meeting is being held both in person and remotely, according to Governor Baker's February 15th executive order. The act was extending his previous executive order for March 12th, 2020. That meeting's notice contained a Zoom link provided to the public with remote access as well. So if we could do a roll call, please, and for attendance. Oh, I call the names? Oh, I'm so used to the regular meeting. Sorry. Well, I'm here. Ms. Brunel is here. Juan Garcia. I'm sorry, Juan Burgos. Sorry, Juan.
I'm here. That's okay. That's part of my family.
So Juan is the chair representing the City Council. Thanks for joining us. And then our representatives on the school committee, we have John Willihan.
Here.
And then we have Rebecca Burks.
Here.
And then our members for the City Council, we have Tessa Murphy-Romboletti.
Here.
And Jenny Rivera.
Here.
And I would just like to also acknowledge the other members of the City Council and School Committee that have joined us. We have Ms. Collimore, our School Committee representative for Ward 6, and Joe McGivern, our representative from the City Council at large. Do we have anyone else on Zoom, Jenny, that I'm not seeing? No? All right. If we could all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty.
Wonderful. So before we begin our agenda this evening, I would just like to take a minute to express my disgust and heartache at the recent events that unfolded at a Texas elementary school. My disgust at the systems that have failed those innocent children. My disgust at the fact that we live in a country where children must fear going to school. And my disgust at the fact that we live in a country whose government values gun rights more than human rights. I ask that we pause for a moment of silence to help send the message to those families affected by this tragedy that we are mourning with them. Thanks, everyone. So on that, we'll get started. So first on our agenda this evening, we have an order that was filed by Councilor Israel Rivera. I don't think he's with us to elaborate on his order, but he was looking for a third grade literacy update and data for the past 5 years and steps that the district is taking to address our literacy rates. So Mr. Soto, if you guys could take over on that one.
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Brunel. I'm joined here with Valerie Neer and Dr. Mahoney as well. Some of this information was included in the presentation that we did back in November, but what we did was basically take what was asked, which was just third grade information, and we'll be presenting that tonight. I have Valerie with me, and Valerie.
Hi, so I'm going to take you through a couple of quick slides and explain what the data is on there and then what our action steps are. Like Mr. Soto said, that was shared at a recent school committee meeting, but we wanted to kind of bring that back for you to see. So the first slide here, we thought it was important to show you what our third grade breakdown of our student population is across the 5 years. The green bar is general education students who do not have additional learning needs that can't be met outside of the core classroom. The light blue indicates the percentage of students who receive individual education plans or require special education. I'm going to go a little out of order here. The top yellow or orange color that you see are students identified as English learners who need additional language acquisition support. And then that dark blue, those are our students who are duly identified, and what that means is that they have both a language acquisition need in addition to special education needs. So the next slide you're going to see is the percent of third graders over time. I'll describe this slide a little bit. It might look a little wonky or a little extra information there. But these are third grade students across, starting from school year 18 through our current school year. This is showing us the percentage of students who are scoring at a grade equivalency of 3.0 or greater. The black lines above, what we've done is we've showed you beginning of the year data and then end of the year data for each of those years that we have information. The black lines are the national average. We use a norm referenced assessment to get this information called the STAR Literacy Assessment. And you can see each year where students start off and where they end at the end of the year. I do want to make sure that we understand that this year's data is not complete. We are still in the middle of our window for administering our STAR assessments. At the time that we pulled this data to share with you today, we had only about 20% of our students who had completed the assessment. So that number is going to change, but we wanted to show you so far of students who have taken the assessment. So that's a number that will certainly change by the end of our window. Our assessment window goes through June 10th, so we have a lot more to go. You can see we have there's growth, but we are significantly below the national average of where students are who take the STAR assessment. We'll look at school year 21 for comparison reasons because that's when our students completed the full assessment and over 95% had completed it. And we are at 52% who are at or above third grade reading levels, whereas the national norm is 79% of students by the end of the year. So we know we have significant work to do, and we have some tightened actions that we plan to do over the next few years to help address this and to continue to address it. The next slide shows you the MCAS data. Internally, we like to use the STAR data. It's norm referenced, and it's based on what the students answer on questions that then kind of adjusts based on where they are. That is a norm referenced is different than criterion referenced, which is what our MCAS is. It's here's the bar, and let's see how our students are doing towards meeting that bar. The green is meeting expectations. So in 2021, last year, we had 15% of third graders meeting expectation. We had 55% who were partially meeting and 30% who were not meeting. This is really dire. I will say that in a recent study, probably find this, I can get it for you later if you want, but there was an article recently around Massachusetts third grade literacy scores specifically, and how there has been a significant drop over time. That does not help us at all. That just means our data is that much more dire, but they saw a significant decrease, particularly amongst students of color over the last few years. So I can get you that information if you want to learn more around the trends in Massachusetts in general, but clearly for our purposes and for our planning, we're more concerned with how our students are doing in Holyoke. The next slide is the same data, only you can see the top line is the state data for third graders. The bottom line is where Holyoke is, and what this does is allow us to see that gap and that it has widened. There is an expectation it would widen over a pandemic, but the entire nation went through a pandemic, and you can still see that our gap is significant. So what are we doing about this? Our top priority and action steps that we wanted to speak with you today about are in regards to improving structured literacy, specifically improving small group instruction so that we can meet students where they're at and give them specific structured instruction that allows them to quickly accelerate their learning. We are in the process of completing and then going to be implementing an early literacy plan. We will be working with some professionals in a consultation model to do that work, people who are extremely strong in literacy structures at the district level. We are going to continue the work that we did this year that the school committee heard earlier around partnering with our relay partners and really having a strong focus on using instructional data to drive our planning, as well as continuous and improved observation and feedback so that our staff can continue to grow and hone their expertise. We will be holding professional learning for all staff who teach literacy in grades K to 2 in high structures and high quality curriculum and instructional moves in structured literacy. And the next bullet is just around different staff members who will continue what I just mentioned about that strong feedback loops for staff. And then one of the things that we can do together as a community on a whole is to strengthen and continue our commitment to grow our HELI initiative. And what HELI stands for is the Holyoke Early Learning Initiative. And the next slide gives you a little bit of information around, that's a lot up there, so if you get this later you might be able to see it better. But what I want you to pay attention to is what the vision is for HELI, which is that every child in Holyoke is healthy and on track for early learning success. And that simply means from birth to third grade, we want our children to be ready to learn and be successful to close the gap that we just saw highlighted. We currently have re-energized the HELI program over the past 3 years. We work with Ron Fairchild, who's from the he's from, it just slipped my mind, it'll come back. But he is known, he works with a national organization around literacy and around learning. And so he has helped us put together a plan with the partners you see off to the right-hand side. VOC, Raising a Reader, Holyoke Community College, Mount Holyoke. We have Head Start participation, Enchanted Circle, and LASE also joins this committee. That community-wide effort, those folks meet every month to talk about specific actions in our professional learning and leadership area of the strategic plan that the community had opportunity to develop, as well as how do we amplify and connect all of our programs across the city towards this effort of supporting our youngest learners.
And I just want to add that we have just gone through an entry plan process where I got a lot of feedback from the community over the first 6 months of the school year, and transitioned into a strategic planning process. And I for me, it was really important that process be inclusive. I didn't want to put together a 3-year strategic plan that belonged, that was Anthony Soto's thinking. I wanted to put a plan together that was cohesive and that included a lot of input from people from the community. So we set up a steering committee and of like my cabinet, a couple of principals, and a school committee member. And we didn't stop there. We also had an advisory committee of over 40 people because it was really important to get feedback from as many people, not just feedback, but they're actually helping develop our plan. But one of the 5 strategies that has emerged is that we really have to have a strong focus on early literacy. And I know a lot of districts say that, and I know Holyoke has even said that in the past, but it's not what our focus has been for the last 5 years, 6 years. We haven't had the resources, and we haven't had the focus. We've if you look at the turnaround plan, there's a million things in there. And one thing that was clear to me is that we really need to narrow our focus. And I'm really happy that this has become a priority of the district, and now we have resources to be able to fund it. We hope that the job market gets better. I mean, it's really concerning that we just had a a job fair where we normally get over 100 teachers to show up, and we only had 8. TNTP just put on a job fair in Springfield where they normally get over 500 teachers. They had 18 teachers show up. So it's very concerning. Our plan does rely on having additional supports in those earlier grades. So we're really hopeful that what we put together is focused, and the professional development that we provide is really going to help change what's happening in these earlier grades. We get kids to read by 3rd grade. It's going to have an impact on everything else they do in school beyond that.
Thank you, Mr. Soto, and thank you, Val. Does anybody have any questions for Val or for Anthony? Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. So what's our goals for next year? Do you want to increase those, 10%, 20%? What's your goals for the next either year or 2?
Yeah, those are, as I said, we have a strategic planning process. One big stake in the ground that we have over the next 3 years is that, a percentage of, we haven't decided what that percentage is yet, but we're working with our we just had an advisory committee. That's really the next step, is determining, we know that in every other area, we want at least 1.5 years of growth. You saw on the previous few slides that the data was kind of going in that direction, and then after the pandemic, it went down. That's going to be something that we have to work on. So we got to accelerate learning, and we hope to get 1.5 years worth of growth in a year. But as far as the percentage of students we want reading at grade level by the 3rd grade, I'm going to say we want 100% of them, right? That's always the goal. But we're gonna be rolling out that strategy in early June, and by then those actual percentages will be ironed out.
The other measure that we have, just to add to what Anthony just mentioned, is that we look at the growth percentiles. So normal average growth is between the 40th and the 60th percentile. That won't get us the 1.5 year growth that in grade level equivalency that Anthony just mentioned. So we're looking for growth percentiles to be above 60%. And my team's been looking at that as our end of the year reading data comes in. And we're seeing pockets where we have a large portion of students who are between 80 and 90 percentile for growth, which is great. And in those areas, we do see a year or close to a year or a little over a year's worth of growth, 1.5, even more. So we are watching our internal data closely, and that'll help inform our percentage gaps. But we will have a growth indicator there as well, because we know if we're growing our students at those levels, they're more likely to reach that 1.5 or higher grade level goal.
Mr. Burgos?
Anderson Burgos.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. So in comparison to Westfield, Ludlow, and Northampton and other municipalities, the numbers you just presented to us and regarding the reading and the rates, how are they in comparison? And at this point, it really doesn't matter whether it's pre-pandemic, during pandemic, or after pandemic. I'm wondering, and I'm trying to figure out, where are we having the struggles, and how can we fix that?
So our performance is significantly lower than the communities that you just mentioned. Some communities that we typically compare around our data to see growth with comparable populations are, I like to look at Springfield, Chicopee, our neighbor, and so we are lower than those. We are not as low as we have been comparatively to those particular districts. We will have data coming out soon that the state will be releasing that shows that we are making some gains in some areas. But that doesn't change the fact that we have a long way to go. And so what we know now around early literacy instruction compared to the resources and the training that we had prior to the last few years is that we need to move to a more research-based process. One where there is brain research to show we know specifically how language develops. We know how students learn to become literate young children and then adults. And so we have, over the past few years, been making some changes to our early literacy resources, to our focus of what instruction needs to look like, and in bolstering what our professional learning is for staff in those grade levels. We've spent a year this year with our expert teachers or coaches. Our literacy coaches have had a deep dive into what structured literacy looks like, what the components need to be during that learning block, and have been helping our staff provide PD to the staff in their buildings around supporting what that instruction looks like. There's a lot of different things that are going to go into what our results look like, but as far as what we're trying to change with what reading instruction looks like and how it feels and sounds in the classroom and the experience that students are having, we've been putting that ground level work in place around the new research, and we feel that we are at a good spot to accelerate within those structures that we now have in place. So the short answer is we are still behind those communities that you mentioned, and it is a shift in understanding how to teach early literacy that we have moved to, and also making sure we have the right resources in the hands of teachers and that they know how to use them and we support them.
Okay, yeah, so I'm thinking along the lines of funding. Are we financially ready and equipped to bring forth the what you have suggested on how we're going to go about rethinking how we educate our children?
Absolutely.
Right,
I'm going to turn that to Mr. Soto. We have an unprecedented time right now in what our funding structure is with some of the ESSER funding. And I can tell you that everything that I have brought to Mr. Soto in our conversations around what our needs are, he is prioritizing around that instructional design. And so I will let him clarify on that. But the short answer is yes.
Yeah, we've invested.
I figured as much because, you know, we are always getting the bad end of the stick. I'll use that instead of the other way. So we're always getting the bad end of the stick, and Holyoke deserves more money. So that's a different conversation for a different day. But I know it's based from funding, because it's funding and the quality of education that we're providing to our children. So those are the two things we need to look at and be more diligent. Go ahead.
Yeah, it definitely 100% has been, limited resources. I think that one big shift that we're going to be making in the next couple of years is redistricting and rezoning, hopefully getting a new middle school. But, part of the reason why we see what we see is we haven't had the resources to be able to do the things that we want to do at the pace that we need to do them. We are not in that position right now. Like, it's not going to be about funding. We've invested over $1 million in resources alone just in the last couple of years. That resources that we honestly, we should have had a long time ago, but just never had resources to do it. It's not going to be a resource issue. It's going to be a staffing issue. Like, if our plans are hampered or if there's bumps in the road in our planning. It's not about the financial resources. It's about the human capital resources that just quite frankly aren't available. I mean, we're hoping to have, over 600 teachers next year. And we've had many positions this year that like just went unfilled. It's a time where people are, during the pandemic, for whatever reason, there's a lot of people have chosen to leave the industry. It's not a unique problem. Like, it's not unique to Holyoke. It's happening across the entire nation, across the state. I talked to other superintendents. They're in the same boat. They're having really hard time filling positions. I know I was pretty long-winded in that answer, but we finally now have resources to do it, and now it's just a matter of finding the right people and putting them in front of kids, giving them the resources that they need, the coaching, the training. We finally have academic intervention teachers. Those are things we didn't have those for the last 6 years, and other districts do. The districts that you mentioned, they have those structures in place. Now we have the structures. Now we have the funding. We just need this. We need the teachers. We need staffing to get better. And I'm gonna be optimistic and say that hopefully things will get better in that aspect.
Mr. Willihan?
Thank you. Real quick, this might not apply to the third grade levels, but are our students, do the teachers give them like choices on what books they want to read? I remember being like in fourth and fifth grade where the teacher would like maybe give us like a choice out of 3 or 4 books, in a class in a group would choose which book they want to read, just to kind of make reading more fun. So I'm not sure whether that's being applied, maybe not the third grade, but maybe fourth or fifth.
I can say for sure that it's being done in fifth grade because I counseled with one of my son's teachers and talked about the fact that he wasn't interested in something, in a particular subject matter. So she went above and beyond to make sure that there was reading materials in the classroom that, were engaging to him and catching his interest. So I can speak for fifth grade, it's happening.
It does happen at the younger grades too. It's extremely important when students are doing independent work. A lot of times what you see at grades K to 3 and obviously above, I mean, we learn better when we're choosing what we're learning, right? And if we don't have an opportunity to read texts that interest us, then So that's true for any age. So if children are engaged in independent work, even in kindergarten, like I said, one of the options is that they're reading from particular text sets, or they might be able to go and choose books out of a certain area, knowing that it's going to be at the level that's going to push them and help practice what they've had for skills. During one of their mini lessons, perhaps. So yes, and it's an area that we continue and have helped try to improve and increase the number of books that students can relate to, that they see themselves reflected in, that we have dual language or bilingual stories, that we have stories in Spanish, that anyone who picks up a book or chooses a book out of our classroom should see themselves reflected in what they're reading. And so over the last few years, we have bought multicultural or culturally responsive text sets at particular grade levels, at the younger grades, and infused classrooms with those. By no means do we have enough. And so just yesterday, Mr. Soto and I were talking about really pushing that even more. And we will, stay tuned. We're looking to do a citywide early childhood, really pre-K to 5 book fair where students can come to one location with our Heli partners there. We don't have a date. It's literally just an idea. But the purpose is to have literature and books there that students that show up get to choose for free, up to at least 2 books that they can have that they're able to select from. So that's a very tiny thing to do, but it's an incredibly important thing that we increase the amount of books available to our students.
Yeah, and I'll just say we're also looking, I've asked Valerie and other members of our team to look at all of our libraries in our schools, look at all of our classroom resources in our schools, and and make sure that we have, culturally responsive resources that kids want. You go to some of our libraries and there's things in there that were there when I was in school, right? Like kids don't want to read that stuff. So we want to make sure we take a look at what resources are out there that our kids are interested in, and make sure that they're there available for them.
Mr. McGivern?
Thank you, Chair Brunel, and thank you, Val, for a presentation. I was impressed with, if I'm saying it correct, Helly, close enough.
Ellie.
With the partnerships on the right on the slide. There are a lot of other groups out there too,
Yes.
which I think, especially after school, outside of the school. The Women's Junior League is doing a book. It's not even a swap; it's a giveaway, and I know they're using the merry-go-round for one of their locations to make books available to children of younger ages. The Enchanted Circle, I believe, is still active, and I'm very close to a retired reading liaison who works at the after-school program for the YMCA. And I think those connections are very important because they're looking at the curriculum of the public schools and trying to keep in connection with what the kids are doing after school. And she's a tough cookie. She speaks 3 languages while her husband is still learning 1. But she's incredible with making sure that each of those that come under her care during a short period of time are going to be reading and doing homework and doing stuff while they're there. And never forget our public library, Mr. Superintendent. It's,
Yes.
It's one of the, well, we still have Maria. It's still one of the best around.
Yes, we certainly want to expand those partnerships, and we have connections with our after-school programming, like you mentioned, and partnering. So any names and any connections we can make to kind of strengthen that is helpful. You mentioned the library. The literacy director was just over there. Could have been today or yesterday. The days run into one another, but this week to plan our summer reading challenge with them, and so we partner with them as well. And it has to be a whole community effort. So the more we can do, the better together. Yes,
Absolutely. But thank you.
Thanks, Val. Thanks, Mr. McGivern. Do we have any further comments or questions for the group? No? All right, then I would like to entertain a motion that the order's been complied with.
Second.
Well, you got to move it first, my
So
love. And thank you, Mr. Willihan. And I have Mr. Anderson Burgos as the second. Any further discussion? All right, so because we are Zoom and in person, we have to do all votes by roll call. So on the motion that the order's been complied with, Mr. Anderson Burgos,
I'm a yes.
Mr. Willihan,
Yes.
Ms. Burks,
Yes.
Ms. Do you want me to use both your last names as well, Tessa?
Oh, whatever works. Yes.
Miss Murphy Rumboletti,
Yes.
Miss Rivera,
Yes.
and I am a yes as well, Miss Brunel. So that order has complied with. Thank you, everyone. Moving on to the second item on the agenda. We have an order filed. Let me just pull up the actual order so I have the language correctly. We have an order filed for Mr. Jourdain that the school department develop a financial literacy curriculum for the schools. I do understand that Mr. Soto and Mr. Jourdain have had some meetings on the side to discuss this so that he could be informed of the curriculum that we currently have going on in the schools. Mr. Soto, is there anything else that you wanted to add?
Yeah, I'll just add that if any city councilor or school committee has any questions, I'm open. You guys all have my cell phone number, but this I don't know that it needed to be an order that was filed because we've had financial literacy and we've been offering it for the last 4 or 5 years at both of our campuses. 4 years or so. This will be our 4th year, so in the presentation that Sam has emailed, and for those of you that have hard copies, we do have a copy of the course syllabus. You know, our students learn about finance, they learn about the value of money, they learn about taxes, they learn about checking and balancing checkbook, online banking, savings, they learn about investing, types of credit, they learn about, it's a really rich course. So this is something that is available to our students already. I've seen, you know, articles in Boston and seen one the other day in Springfield where it was like a news article that they were implementing financial literacy. We've been doing it for the last 4 years. No one's been talking about it. So right now we have 47 students enrolled at Dean and 99 students enrolled at North, mostly juniors and seniors. So, yeah, I would just hope that what I provided is sufficient.
Seems to me like it is. Thank you, Mr. Soto. Do we have any questions?
Well, no, not so much a question. It seems like this is complied with, so I was going to make a motion that it was complied with. If no one has a follow-up question for Mr. Soto or for anybody else in the committee, then I would make that motion. But if someone does, I'll hold off on that motion.
Yep, we have one question for Mr. Willihan, and then we'll get right back to you. Thank you, Mr. Anderson Burgos.
Sure.
Thank you. Just a comment. Yeah, this is good to have. I mean, we didn't have this when I was in high school, as far as I know. So it's a good class. It's a good building blocks.
Yeah.
For the students. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Willihan. So on that, Mr. Anderson Burgos, I'll entertain that motion.
On the motion?
Yeah.
Somebody second?
Second.
So moved. Nope, second.
So moved and second.
Thank you, Jenny, and thank you, Mr. Willihan. Any further discussion?
Yeah, I have a quick question. The presentation for the heli mission is still up. Can someone take that down, or are we still going over that?
We are not, so thank you. We'll get that switched on the Zoom.
Sure, thank you.
All right, so on the motion that agenda item number 2, develop financial literacy curriculum, has been satisfied, I will take a roll call vote on that. Mr. Anderson Burgos?
I'm a yes.
Mr. Willihan?
Yes.
Mrs. Burks? We'll come back to her. Mrs. Mrs. Murphy-Ramboletti?
Yes.
Oh, thanks, Rebecca.
Yes.
Mrs. Rivera?
Yes.
And myself, Ms. Brunel, I'm a yes as well. Thank you, everybody. Moving on to agenda item number 3. This order was filed by Councilor Israel Rivera. That the Superintendent Soto and President Royale discuss adult trade offering certifications to residents. Mr. Soto, I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, unfortunately, Miss Royale wasn't here, but we did our own research, and I do have a slide for this. It's slide number 10. I'm not sure if it's up. We did our own research, and if the city does want to offer something like this, they would just have to appropriate funding for it. And then there's 2 options that we could use, or they would have to charge tuition for it to cover the cost. As many of you have heard me say probably 1,000,000 times, adult education is not, just like transportation, adult education is not part of net school spending. So it's not something that the school department would fund. But I think that, we'd be happy to, if the city is interested in funding a program, we'd be happy to sit down and talk about like what offerings we would want to offer the community. What are they interested in? There's 2 ways to go about it. One way would be to actually apply for a post-secondary Chapter 74 program, and that you actually have to go through an application process with the state. Or to the first option would be if we used our own shop and it's not a Chapter 74 post-secondary or a post-secondary program. So we do have carpentry, we have culinary, we have electrical, we have cosmetology. There's I want to say nine shops at the Dean campus. So I think, like, I know that Councilor Rivera had filed this order. I would be interested to see, like, what is it that the community wants? What is it that the community needs? And if we have the ability to support and the city is willing to pay for it, we would certainly entertain, a partnership there through our Dean campus.
Thank you, Mr. Soto. Sorry, I unmiked myself on the wrong device. Thank you, Mr. Soto. Do we have any questions? Mr. Anderson Burgos, is your hand raised for this?
It actually isn't. It's from last time. I'm sorry.
That's okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, sorry, guys, I keep unmuting on Zoom instead. I'll entertain a motion that this has been satisfied, or we could table it for further discussion once we have a chance to have Councilor Rivera come in to discuss further. It's up to the committee what they'd like to do.
I'd make a motion to table it just in case.
Second.
All right, so on the motion is currently table the order for further discussion. Excuse me, I guess, is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, I'll take a roll call vote on that. So, Mr. Anderson Burgos?
Yes.
Mr. Willihan?
Yes.
Miss Rebecca Burks?
Yes.
Miss Murphy Rumboletti?
Yes.
Miss Rivera?
Yes.
And myself, Miss Brunel, is a yes as well. So,
I'll make a
housekeeping,
motion to-
housekeeping error. So Juan's going to introduce the next one. Mr. Anderson Burgos?
Yep. I'd like to make a motion to take up item number 4 off the agenda.
So moved.
Can I get a second?
Second.
So do I have to take a roll call vote on that too?
No, you don't. You just
Okay.
read it into the record.
Okay, sorry guys. School committee and city council works a little differently, so we're just getting the hang of this here. All right, let me get back on track. Screens, 1 second, bear with me. All right, so and agenda item number 4 is that the superintendent, Mr. Soto, provides the committee with an update on the school building committee. Soto?
Great, thank you. And I know the first presentation was a little long, but these last few are real short. I know the city council has been in budget hearings all week. You must be tired. I've been a part of one of them. I can't imagine doing a bunch of these budget hearings. So we just thought it would be a good idea to come, or thank you for inviting us to give a quick update to this committee. Where we're at is we've been invited into the feasibility stage, and as part of that process, the MSBA has asked for a couple of commitments from the city. One, a few things from the city. So they asked for our updated ed plan, which we provided them yesterday, and the school building committee has worked diligently on that with members of my staff as well. And they've asked for to see a couple of a city council resolution on a few things. So what you see here is language that has gone to the city council and I think has been referred to finance. So the first vote they're looking for is basically for the city council to agree that based on its previous feasibility study that was from 2018, that we're going to seek new construction for Peck. When we went through the whole full process the last time, we looked at ad reno and we looked at new construction and landed on like new construction was the way. There was really no cost savings in ad reno. And so they're looking for a commitment that we're not going to open up that rabbit hole again, that we're going based on the last feasibility study. We want to move forward with new construction. The second commitment they want from the city council is that that they formally ask to the city of Holyoke to be invited into the MSBA model school program. And that model school program, we will only go down that road if it saves the city money. So I've been very transparent with the city and with all of our constituents that I'll do anything it takes to be financially responsible as long as it's aligned to our ed plan. So I want to make sure that no stone goes unturned. So if the model school program is one that would help and fits our ed program and saves the city money, we're all on board. So they're looking for the city council to say that we're interested in the model school program, and that if the model school program doesn't work out, that we would we would want to continue using the same OPM and designer that we did, which, if most of you remember, we had asked the city council to appropriate $475,000 for a feasibility study. That was under the condition that we could use the same consultants that we used. If we didn't do that, then the feasibility study would be well over $1 million. So what they're looking for, they know all of this has happened. They know we've had all these conversations. They're just looking for the city council to actually put something in writing that states this is the desire of the body. So, like I said, this did go to city council. I believe it was referred to finance, and there is a meeting on July 1st. On the next slide, I do have these dates wrong because I wasn't aware that it had gone to the full city council. So the hope is now that we could probably go to a finance subcommittee on June 1st, and then take it up at the full city council on June 7th. Is that right, Councilor McGivern?
That is correct, Mr. Soto. The three requests from the MSBA was filed under our president, Tom McGee, and the city council chose to put it in the finance committee. The reason it's in finance is the final vote, as always, for bond approval would be the finance committee's purview. So it kind of makes sense to keep it in the same committee. I just like to step back, though, and congratulate the building committee and congratulate the school committee and Mr. Soto and the public schools for getting the MSBA approval. I think that's very important. And now we get into the design schematic phase, and then the real hard phase of affordability. But that's not what we're here to talk about tonight. On Peck School, you might want to reach out to Councilor Bartley, who represents that neighborhood, and just see what his thoughts are about either having a neighborhood meeting or doing something that makes sense to bring the neighbors in. I think most city councilors are. We really only had two choices, and if Peck is never going to be a school, or will probably never be a school again, it makes sense to take it down and build on that site. And of course, my vision with the former Mayor Sullivan was to connect Peck to the high school by a road, build some more parking, and build some soccer practice fields there, and that was his vision. And we were close with the MSBA back not too long ago, a couple decades. But
the original design did have a nice connection to, like, put lighting in the dingo and actually make that a space where that actually looks like a walk path. So, it was a nice design. I wanted to mention that there is going to be a tour of Peck School, I believe on June 9th. The email went out to all of the city councilors and school committee members. We've had several tours of Peck, but we really thought I think there was a scheduling conflict the night that we did a walkthrough. There was something at the senior center that a lot of city councilors were going to, but we encourage any city councilor that's interested in touring Peck to go see for yourself.
Thank you, Mr. Soto, and thank you, Councilor McGivern. Does anybody else have any questions? I see Mrs. Murphy Rumboletti's hand up.
I'm still a miss. I didn't get married yet.
I just fixed that, miss.
Thank you. I just had more of a clarifying question. Did the MSBA indicate that it needs to just pass, or does it need to pass unanimously?
I don't think it needs to pass unanimously. Nothing needs to pass unanimously, though it is always
Okay.
nice
I
to
didn't
have
know
a
if,
unanimous show of support.
Right. I didn't know if that is held against us. Who knows what the vote would be, but I was just curious.
I don't think so. I mean, they deal with communities all the time. There's never gonna, or I'm not gonna say never, but they're familiar with, when there's not unanimous decision. I don't. They wouldn't hold that against it. It looks good when there's unanimous.
Yeah. Of
That's what
course,
they're
yeah.
looking for is a commitment from Holyoke. With a failed vote, there's always that hesitation, and they've invited us back in pretty quickly, and they've been pretty solid partners in getting us back to the front of the line. When normally, we wouldn't be as far along as we were after a failed vote.
Yeah. All right. Cool. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I just want to echo Mr. Soto's sentiments. It really is just to kind of get them comfortable with the sense of support from the council. And then we can, as Mr. McGivern said, move on to the next phase of the process. I would like to just let everybody know as well that our next meeting, I believe, is June 7th. Is that right, Mr. Soto, or is it? When's the next SB school building committee meeting?
I don't think it's June 7th because there's a city council meeting that night, right?
Full city council on June 7th.
Full city council meeting that night.
That is correct. It's the full city council meeting.
I'm going to check. Hold on one second.
I just did.
You just gave us what, my dear? I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
No, I double checked that there is a city council meeting on that day, June 7th.
Yeah, I was trying to provide the information of when the next school building committee meeting was. I know our June date got pushed back because it's the 9th, right? Yeah, our original meeting date got pushed back due to the Dean campus graduation. So our next school building committee meeting is June 9th, and people can zoom in to be part of that.
Perfect. Thank you.
Any other questions on agenda item 4? Well, that wasn't a city council order, so we don't need to take a formal vote on that. I just thought it was an appropriate venue for an update and to kind of go over the vote language so that people could hear it ahead of the finance committee meeting. So moving on to agenda item number 5 is just to approve the minutes from the last meeting. So we had sent everybody the minutes from the November meeting. So if I could entertain a motion to approve those minutes.
So moved.
I'll make that motion. Second.
All right, I have the motion by Mr. Willihan and a second by Mr. Anderson Burgos. And again, we need to roll call vote. So any further discussion on the minutes before we take the vote? Seeing none, I will start with Mr. Anderson Burgos.
I'm a yes.
Mr. Willihan?
Yes.
Ms. Burks?
Yes.
Ms. Murphy-Rumboletti?
Yes.
Ms. Rivera?
Yes.
And myself, Ms. Brunel, is a yes. So that covers all of our agenda items for this evening. I want to thank you all for joining us, and I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I'll make that motion.
We'll let Juan take
Second.
that one and second it by Mr. Willihan. Roll call, please, on the motion, pending no further discussion. All right. Mr. Anderson Burgos?
Yes.
Mr. Willihan?
Yes.
Ms. Burks?
Yes.
Ms. Murphy-Rumboletti?
Yes.
Ms. Rivera?
Yes.
And Ms. Brunel is myself. I'm a yes as well. All right. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you at the next one.
Thank you.
Thank you.